This program is recorded and presented by Chippewa Valley Community Television. This is a rebroadcast of the Eau Claire School Board meeting. The audio for this program can be heard on WRFP LP 101.9 FM.
We'll call to order tonight's Board of Education meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Secretary Iverson, have we complied with the open meetings law notification this evening?
Yes, we have.
Thank you. Please do a roll call to verify quorum.
Okay. Commissioner Duax,
Present.
Commissioner Hambuck-Boyle,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Luganbill,
Here.
Commissioner Spindler,
Here?
Commissioner Vu,
Here.
Commissioner Jean.
Here.
Great, thank you. So next on our agenda is the public forum. We have 3 tonight that have signed up to speak. Generally, we have rules are 4 minutes to speak, and just state your name and address when you come up. So first I have Ryan, is it Ryan Rudock? Come up and speak, please. Ah, there you are. And you can go up to the mic over there and just state your name and address. Thank you.
My name is Ryan Rudak. My address is S5135 Highway 37, Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I just wanted to simply start a discussion and at least address some issues with policy 411. I realize it is a sensitive issue with many of the student body of Eau Claire. Simply with the fact that as we start changing policies, we need to make sure that we're not only protecting a minority, but we also need to make sure that we're protecting the majority of our student body. That being said, we want to protect everybody in the whole student council, or the student body. I'm sorry, I've never done this before, so I apologize.
That's okay, it's fine. It's hard.
As we change school policy, it can open doors to some other consequences that were not intentional. One of those, exposing students that may not necessarily feel comfortable in a setting to things that we didn't intend to, such as take Sparta School District, for example. They were looking to pass a policy in which they were trying to make accommodations for their transgender and their LGBT community by allowing what would be considered kind of like a bathroom bill, where they could go into opposite bathrooms, males into females, and males and females into the males. There's risk of physiological concerns and harassment that we just don't want to open those doors. So I just wanted to simply start a discussion about that, kind of figure out where this policy 411 change is coming into play and how it will affect the student body and the community as well. So with that, I guess I leave that with you. Thank you.
Great, thank you for your comments. Appreciate that. Next we have Alvin Kohlhepp.
Good evening. I'd like to speak to the same policy 411. I have a written statement here that I'll read briefly. First, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to address the school board about this important proposed policy change. Like you, I am too deeply concerned about the welfare and safety of all students in our schools. I have no doubt that you take your responsibility in this regard very seriously and will consider this policy accordingly. However, I believe the policy you're considering will actually imperil the welfare and safety of many students, as well as their personal privacy rights. First, it is reasonable to conclude that the school district is dealing with this issue because of statements and actions by the federal government over the recent months. I am making available to each school board member tonight a letter from the attorneys at the Alliance Defending Freedom indicating to date that there is no federal law compelling school districts to pass policies that allow boys to use the girls' restrooms or vice versa. I realize this policy change does not directly implicate the use of restrooms. However, given the enforcement provisions of the policy, one could conclude that inevitably this will be the reality in the Eau Claire Public Schools. This policy would give the superintendent enormous latitude to implement and create rules and regulations, compliance procedures, and reporting requirements. That means that Dr. Harderbeck will have the opportunity to create policies that would affect the use of restrooms in other situations in which students are in various stages of undress, and this latitude, I believe, is unwise. I'm also giving the board members a copy of an alternative policy that I believe will truly protect the rights of all students. It is appropriate for all students while making accommodations for those students who are uncomfortable using the restrooms and/or locker rooms or changing rooms of their biological sex. This alternative policy even adds gender identity and gender expression to the list of groups given special non-discrimination protections. Please refer to these proposed changes back to the committee so that it can be more thoroughly evaluated in light of the information and alternatives I'm giving you tonight. The policy as currently is, I believe, should not be given a first reading tonight. Thank you. And if I'd have your permission, I could hand out these handouts to you, if that'd be okay.
Sure, that's fine. Thank you for the comments. Okay, we also have, while he's handing that out, we just give it to the board members. Or you can just give them at the end and they'll pass them over. Thank you. John Jordan, go ahead. Just state your name and address. Thank you.
Right here. Name is John Jordan. Address is 2920 Leslie Lane, here in Eau Claire. And instead of stating facts, is it possible to ask 4 questions?
No, we don't allow that in public comment. You can
Okay.
just make a statement.
Well, basically, that's all I had.
Okay, sorry about that.
Thank you.
What you
But-
could do, sir, is share the questions you have about the policy so that we could consider those as we deliberate.
Thank you for that. Yeah, so we can't reply to you, but if you have questions, we can consider those when it comes up to us, when we discuss.
Okay.
If you want to do that, you're welcome to do that. Thank you for the clarification.
Some of the questions that I would have is, what specifically does it mean, transgender behavioral, gender behavior, gender sensitivity, all these things? What does that actually mean? Secondly, what's the basis upon the decisions that you've made? Those kinds of things. If this is what is right, what difference does this make in the future? If it's not, what about that? Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, that's it for our public comment. I appreciate the comments, and we will actually be talking about that issue later in this meeting. All right. All right, so superintendent's report. Go ahead, Superintendent Harderbeck.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. I'd like to review the upcoming Board of Education events. March 21st through the 25th, schools will be closed for spring break. April 4th at 10 a.m. in the Administration Building, there will be a meeting of the Policy and Governance Committee. Also on April 4th, there will be a school board meeting. April 5th is Election Day, and we have several seats that are up for election, so encourage everyone to get out and vote. April 11th, there is the Parent Advisory Council meeting here in the Administration Building at 7 o'clock, and on April 12th, there's a Charter Choice Committee meeting at 4 p.m. in the Administration Building. And then on April 18th, there will be a school board meeting at 7 p.m. Tonight we have several group recognitions, but before we do that, I want to recognize Jason Lynn and William Jang again. We recognized you last week, or at the last board meeting, but unfortunately you were absent. So we wanted to make sure that you were here. You've been named a 2016 Coca-Cola Scholar, and as we pointed out, you were two of 150 students who were determined to best exemplify superior leadership and dedication to their community from a pool of more than 87,000 initial applicants from across the country. Each Coca-Cola Scholar will receive a $20,000 scholarship to the college or university of his or her choice and travel to Atlanta at the end of March for their Scholars Weekend. So Jason, congratulations. And William, is William here? William, stand up please so we can see you. Stand up, Jason. That's great. 150 out of 87,000. Good work. I'd also like to congratulate the Memorial Boys Hockey Team, who won the Wisconsin Hockey Coaches Association Academic State Champion Award with a collective team GPA of 3.74. The North Girls Golf Team received the Golf Coaches Association of Wisconsin's Academic All-State Honorable Mention with a collective team GPA of 3.805. And the Big Rivers Conference published the list of student athletes who earned academic all-conference honors for the first semester. And the qualifications for this honor include student athletes who are junior or senior in a Big River Conference school. They must have lettered in at least one sport during the fall or winter seasons this year, and they must have a semester GPA of 3.5 or higher at the conclusion of the first semester. Well, there were 211 students in Eau Claire who received this honor for the first semester. So that's really wonderful. So congratulations to all of those students. And that concludes my report for tonight.
Great, thank you, thank you. I did not have much in my report. I was also going to remind people about the election on April 5th. We do have 5 candidates. Looks like we have 2 here. Erin Harder and Carolyn Barstead are here. And I don't think Jennifer Fager is here, but she's another candidate, and then Chris and myself. So urge you all to vote for that race and others that are on the ballot. I would encourage board members to attend the 2016 Summit Leadership Institute. It's July 16th in Green Bay. I've attended a couple times. It's a very useful institute to go to. You learn a lot, even as not just a first-time board member. So, and that's it for my report for today. All right, so we have student rep report. It looks like Jason, you are alone here tonight, so go ahead.
We had Hockey State happen, so a lot of the students, went down and saw the hockey team. A lot of them had a blast. I talked to a few of them, and the juniors took their ACT. So we got to start late. We got to start school late, which was pretty relaxing. And the band, the Memorial Band, they are practicing solo ensemble, which will take place in April. And yeah, wishing them luck. And we had Uganda Rock happen, which is basically high schoolers. They design their own band, and they basically have a concert, and a few students go to, well, a decent amount of students, number of students go to these events, this event, which is pretty cool. And Key Club had their state convention, and Memorial is quite amazing. We got best secretary, best president, and best, I think 2 or 3 more positions. I think Billy knows the other positions. And student council is considering a bike to school day event, and we're also considering providing snacks for students before AP exams and finals to calm their nerves. And I want to congratulate Leslie Kent for receiving the Rotary Youth Award, and she is recognized on the Leader Telegram. And I would also like to recognize Billy for being a Coca-Cola Scholar. Thank you.
Great, thanks. So we'll see if those healthy snacks are going to follow our wellness policy. Okay, so board committee reports. First, we got quite a few this time, actually. Committees have been meeting recently. Policy and governance. Commissioner Luganville, you're doing that one?
So we met on March 7th, and at the top of the agenda, we met with Kai-Ying Zhang to discuss Policy 411 and the proposed change to it, and we'll have that later on the agenda this evening. We also discussed revisions as recommended to Wellness Policy 480, and we had Sue Brown there with us, and she's been doing a lot of work on that. We will be bringing Policy 222 to tonight's meeting as well. You'll see that, and it just needed to be updated because the Administrators Association no longer exists, so we needed to update our policies to reflect that. And we also looked at a couple other policies that we're going to be bringing at future meetings. It looks like most are going to be pertaining to finances, but then we also talked about Policy 185 on board committees, and we sent that to Charter Choice, and they will be sending it back to us. So that's what I've got.
All right, great, thank you. Budget, Commissioner Zhang, do you want to give that report?
Yes, we met this morning. We talked about the community survey proposal recommendations. We're going to get a presentation later this evening as well on that. We had a lively discussion actually this morning about the updates for the compensations. It was very helpful for me. It opened hearts and minds, I guess. So that is just the beginning, I believe. We're gonna have a very long conversation, and it's well needed, and it needs to happen. And then we briefly talked about building rentals, but we got some materials to study for that. So the next time we meet, I hope we'll finally get that tackled.
Good, thank you, and it was helpful for all of us in that discussion. Demographic trends, was it you, Commissioner Luganville?
Well, we just met today.
Yeah, right.
We discussed our facilities needs, and we again went through a list of different proposals and ideas that committee members and others had shared, and we went through the pros and cons and different impacts that they would each have, and then we narrowed it down a little bit to some potential short-term and long-term solutions, and we'll be honing in on that discussion at our next meeting. But it included our committee members, administrators, elementary and middle school principals. So good discussion, important discussion.
Okay, great, thank you. And I know we have a charter report. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. We did have a Charter Choice Innovation Committee meeting, and we want to put this committee within honoring everything that's going on in the district so that it honors the system as we innovate down the road. We had 4 submissions already in the imagination stage where people are able to really take the critical questions and answer them and come to us with the first step. We have a couple that will be going to step 2. That's the Innovation Zone Proposal Dialogue, which gets deeper into those questions. Why are they interested in trying this? What's the research and the evidence and the experience that support those concepts? And then we started to define step 3 as well. So we have one of them that will remain in step 1 as we flesh out more questions and wanting more information. We have another one that will remain in step 1 for now as we get more information and have more dialogue with them. And we have 2 more that are ready to go to step 2 in the proposal dialogue. So that's very exciting. And another thing I wanted to report is that we have staff taking a presentation to the Innovative Schools Network conference this year. It is the program that has to do with a film festival. Started last year at our Montessori Public Charter School. So we've got staff presenting at the Innovation Conference. And what I did for the board was run off some information so that you can see what they're presenting. This is the article about the film festival that appeared in volume 1 last year, so you can kind of get a gist of what they're doing. Okay? It's pretty exciting to have Eau Claire represented at the ISN conference. Let me look a little bit here and see. And the conference is April 27th through the 29th, and we have staff and administrators going. Okay? Done with charter choice?
All right, great. Well, are there any other committees? Is there anything else? I think I've caught, those are all our major committees right there, so we've had a lot of work going on lately. Okay, so Commissioner Hambuck-Boyle, you're up again for the
I know.
legislative updates.
I brought copies of the some of the legislative stuff as well. I think the first thing I wanted to talk about is the WASB Board of Directors has set the WASB's legislative agenda. And as we talk about the resolutions and the delegates and the people on the floor that vote on their legislative agenda, I wanted everybody to kind of be aware of that process, that it isn't just the Wisconsin Association of School Boards kind of doing their own thing. So I want to pass that out to everybody so that you have kind of the logistics about how this works with WASB. They have some general guiding principles, and they talk about submitting the resolutions, and I think as a board, I'd like to kind of maybe suggest that we become more involved and maybe submit some resolutions to WASB this year related to some of the concerns that we may have about school funding and the budget. So I wanted you to be aware of that, okay? And then the other legislative item is the University of Wisconsin system hires a legislative staffer to oversee the creation of the independent charter schools in Madison. So what this is we have public school charters. We have two of them in Eau Claire, our Montessori and our McKinley public school charters. In Wisconsin, there are also private charters. There are also 2R charters that are operated through the technical colleges or the universities if they would like to. There aren't many of those. This legislation was passed last year, and now they've appointed Gary Bennett, who will head the new Office of Educational Opportunity, the OEO, an entity proposed by Roberta Darling and other Republican legislators and approved last year as part of the state's biennial budget process. So it was put in the budget. It wasn't necessarily put out there for people to have dialogue about. He will assume that post in April according to the UW system. Now, the OEO, or the Office of Educational Opportunity, will have the ability to bypass local school boards and directly authorize new independent charter schools in districts with more than 25,000 students. Currently, that's just Madison, Milwaukee. I have copies of this for the school board. These are going to be called 2X charters. The school payment amount about $8,188 during the 16-17 school year. So what goes Milwaukee goes the state, so I just want you to have this information. And that's the end of my legislative report.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chris. Okay, so next on our agenda is the consent resolution agenda. These are items that we've either considered before or routine items, and the board will vote on them all at once unless a board member asks to pull an item, in which case we'll vote on it separately. So I would entertain a resolution to approve the minutes of February 29th, 2016. I would entertain a motion to approve the financial report of February 2016. I would entertain a motion to approve the budget adjustments of February 2016. I'd entertain a motion to approve the gifts in the amount of $17,451.25 for the period of February 1 through February 29th, 2016.
Pull it.
Pull it. Okay. And I would entertain a motion to approve the Human Resources Employment Report. Okay, so we have all of those except for the gifts in the amount. Do I have a motion?
I so moved.
I have a motion for Commissioner
Second.
Duax. I have a second for Commissioner Zhang. Any discussion? Okay, we should do a roll call vote for that, please.
Commissioner Duax?
Yes.
Commissioner Hambuck-Boyle?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Luganbill?
Yes.
Commissioner Spindler?
Yes.
Commissioner Vu?
Yes.
Commissioner Jean?
Yes.
All right, great, thank you. So we have the gifts in the amount of $17,000. Commissioner Johnson, I assume you're pulling this for past reasons?
Yeah, and I'm going to vote no, because I still haven't gotten any sort of information on how we're creating equity between our schools. And again, we don't want to discourage gifts, but it concerns me when one of our 2 high schools gets $5,500 to their music program for clinicians to augment the music, music programmatically. So to me, that says that the other school isn't getting their music program augmented in the same way, and that continues to concern me.
Okay, thank you. I am recording this to make sure we get something for you. We'll see how we can have that discussion. Anything else? Are you done, Commissioner Johnson?
Yep.
Or- Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I have
Go ahead.
very similar concerns.
Okay, go ahead.
And I had planned to ask for an agenda item talking about this and equity in the schools. Delighted to have gifts, but we need to have some equity.
Okay, great. We will try to have that discussion. Any other comments or questions about this item? Okay, I would entertain a motion to vote on this item.
So moved.
Motion for Commissioner Luginbill to approve the gifts in the amount of $17,451.25 for that period of February. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second, Commissioner Zhang. Any other discussions? Okay, so let's do a roll call vote on this, please.
Commissioner Duax,
Yes.
Commissioner Hambuck-Boyle,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
No?
Commissioner Luginbill,
Yes.
Commissioner Spindler,
Yes.
Commissioner Vu,
Yes.
Commissioner Zhang.
Yes.
All right, great, thank you, and good comments. So, go ahead.
So tonight, when you approved the employment report, you also approved the appointment of Kevin Thompson as the new Assistant Principal Athletic Director at Memorial High School. And Kevin is here tonight. Kevin, would you stand, please? Kevin attended the University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire, and earned a Bachelor of Science degree in secondary mathematics education with a coaching minor in 1991. He was then hired into the Eau Claire Area School District and taught 8th grade math from 1992 until 1998. During his time at DeLong, he attended Winona State University and earned a Master of Science degree in Educational Administration. While at DeLong, Kevin coached 8th grade football and softball and also served as a substitute administrator. Kevin transferred to Memorial in 1998 as a math teacher. Some of his academic achievements at Memorial include being named the 2015 Lead Digital Electronics Instructor with Project Lead the Way. In 1999, he was recognized with the Eau Claire Memorial Teacher of Excellence and Performance Award, and also as an Excellence in Education Outstanding Educator Award in 2014. He has continued his coaching career at Memorial in boys basketball and football programs. He has been currently leading the strength and conditioning program at Memorial. So Kevin, we welcome you to being the Assistant Principal Athletic Director at Memorial High School, and we are confident that you will bring your knowledge and successful experiences to this new role. Congratulations.
Great, thank you, thank you. Good luck. All right, individual considered resolutions. So I would entertain a motion next. We have to pay our bills. So we have a motion to pay all bills in the amount of $3,992,157.18 and net payroll in the amount of $3,122,244.76 for the period of February 1 through February 29th of 2016. So I would entertain a motion to approve that.
I so move.
We have a motion, Commissioner Duax.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Vu. Any discussions or questions about this? Okay, we'll need a roll call vote on this also.
Commissioner Duax,
Yes.
Commissioner Hambuck-Boyle,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Luginbill,
Yes.
Commissioner Spindler,
Yes.
Commissioner Vu,
Yes.
Commissioner Jean.
Yes.
All right, great, thank you. Next on our agenda is the individual resolutions. We take a little while sometimes now to get to finishing these agreements, but we have the ratification of the 2015-2016 ECAE Master Agreement. I don't know if, if the administration has anything to say on this or to summarize. Okay, so it's our master agreement to basically vote on that for this year, which, we finished negotiations just fairly recently to do that. And they had to go to their membership to vote on it, so that's why it's here before us now. Just a reminder, these take a 2/3 vote because it's really a change in our budget. So, any questions or comments or a motion to put it on the floor?
So moved.
Motion from Commissioner Luganville to put this agreement on the floor to vote for it. Second from Commissioner Duax to vote for the master agreement before us. Any comments or questions? This is basically to give the base wage increase of 1.62% distributed through a across-the-board dollar increase, I believe is how it's done. Yes, Commissioner Hammock-Boyle.
I just want to make a comment for the general public to know that that is the Consumer Price Index. That's allowed under Act 10.
So nothing astounding about it, what's happening. Okay, we'll take a roll call vote on this, please.
Commissioner Duax.
Yes.
Commissioner Hambuck-Boyle.
Yes?
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Luganville.
Yes.
Commissioner Spindler.
Yes?
Commissioner Vu.
Yes.
Commissioner Jean.
Yes.
Great, thank you. All right, so next on is the timeline for the start time decision. We had discussed this in committee last time, and we had suggested a few changes to it, and now it's back before us as a resolution. So we could have some more discussion on it, as well as perhaps pass it today. We have it for us. It's in Word doc, or in our board docs here, I believe. And I don't know. We can either take a motion to put it on the floor, or see if there's discussions first. Whatever you feel like is your pleasure.
Well, I'd move to put it on the floor.
Okay. Oops, motion Commissioner Luganville to put on the floor. Oh, do you guys have some comments on it, or are you just here for questions? Or go ahead, come on up.
One, we could just share with you which we did.
Share the changes.
The board requested that we take a look at the draft timeline.
Okay.
And went ahead and did that. The report that was submitted to you over through board docs is what's up on the screen, and it should reflect the request that we compile the research together in a single location that could be referenced by the board and or the community, and that is done, and there's a website that now contains that off of our webpage. We looked into adjusting the request of your decision-making point to move that just past the referendum meetings or the referendum voting dates, and so that was moved into on your timeline table into the second meeting in November, if you refer to that. And then a look into the research of the impact on our younger children, and the short of that is the amount of research focused on adjusting the time for younger children is relatively silent. And as we looked at things, we didn't find any deep or clear research on that, other than where it was cited. It was cited that they can start earlier than our adolescent students. And so there's a reference to that. And again, the research is all attached on that webpage. And a comment about any of the some parent concerns on how early our youngest students might start relative to the sun and busing. And so there's a short paragraph that sort of speaks to how that might impact our times.
Okay, so was that in board docs that was put in? It was in board docs, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Where?
Wendy's wondering, in attachment.
Well, we've got the timeline as an attachment. What page?
Is it linked on the timeline?
I believe it is. In fact, I believe it's on this exact page. I'm sorry, if you can go up to the top. So they're up. Okay, halfway down. Oh, I have control here, don't I? No. Okay. Let's go to the bottom half of page 1. There we go. So that second from the last paragraph references a link to our public webpage where we had an initial introduction placed, and then there are 2 links from there to a complete list of research and then a specific article from Hanover Research.
So for the benefit of the public, if they're not on board docs on ecasd.us, it's under Departments Teaching and Learning?
If for the public, if they go to our main webpage and they click in the search page, they could type start times,
Okay.
and it should come back as the top link on that search. We tested that this morning.
Great, thank you.
Is it possible to put that as a link on our homepage on the front page so that people could find it easily?
Absolutely. We could work with Patty to find a strategic place to make that more readily accessible.
All right, great, thank you. Thanks for the summary. So we had a motion to put it on the table to approve do I have a second for that, so it's on the table?
Second.
I have a second, Commissioner Zhang, so it's on the table. Comments, questions? I have one, but go ahead, Commissioner
Well, I
Dweck.
just wondered if you would mind reading that paragraph about the elementary kids. Just read it aloud.
It is the bottom paragraph here on the screen. In response to the request for information regarding start time changes in younger children, most research focuses on the benefits of moving adolescent students to a later start time. These studies tend to suggest that a start time ranging from 8:30 a.m. to ideally 10 to 10:30 a.m. for adolescent students. The limited research that does refer to elementary age students suggests simply that they can start earlier than secondary students. And then the following paragraph would go into some comments about the concerns raised by our parents regarding waiting for the bus.
Okay, when I was looking at it, I just had one thing that it wasn't clear to me was addressed. Last time there was a question about, at the very end of the calendar, we have March 18th and to look at it again after the implementation had started, fall of 2017, that was too soon to really know. It's only like 7 months after it started. And there was a suggestion last time to actually really consider it a longer implementation before you think about changing or at least stopping it. So that was a discussion we had last time, and it looks like that's what this is the same, I think, as last time, right? The March 2018, April 2018.
I believe we overlooked that, President Spindler.
Yeah, okay. I mean, we could do the amendment on the floor if we
you
had
could
to.
scratch that date and.
Yeah,
forward.
and I don't mind a check-in at that point, but I would rather not be a really strong check-in that we're just going to end it at that point, but I could see reevaluating, making some adjustments, for that coming fall. But I think a really big check-in would be like a year and a half later to see how it goes. So that was what I noticed on the calendar. Does board members remember that as well? Commissioner Johnson.
Well, I'll make the amendment for you if you want.
Sure, go ahead.
I would suggest that the March of 2018 merely be the first bullet point, so a task force report on how the rollout occurred and suggestions for possible adjustments. And then another check-in at March of 2019 with another report, and then the board action included at that point. So you duplicate that box for March of 2019, but maintain the top bullet for March of 2018.
Secretary Iverson, is that clear? So the amendment would be to scratch the board action piece under March 2018 and repeat that whole box for March 2019. Correct, okay. So that would be so let's just take that as an amendment. So we have a motion for Commissioner Johnson to do that. Do I have a second to do that?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Hambuck-Boyle. Any discussion on that? Okay, let's just do a voice vote on that. All those in favor of that amendment, say aye. 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 Opposed? Okay, that motion passes. I was just wondering also about the April 2018. Is that similar issue there, board members, if you look at that? Or, because it kind of says the same thing. I wasn't quite sure the difference of those. Oh, that was a charge based on March 2018. Commissioner Johnson.
Sure, so I'll make the amendment that the final box as printed is changed to be April of 2019, but that we duplicate it in April of 2018 minus the last phrase, so that you would still have, based on the report, maybe instead of board action, that the leadership continues to adjust and improve implementation for the 2018 school year, and then just strike the or and on. Does that make sense?
Yes, so I'll read it. So April 2018, it would say ECSD Leadership Start Time Task Force. Based upon the task force report, ECSD leadership either continues to adjust and improve, I'm sorry, not either, just leadership continues to adjust and improve implementation for 2018 school year, period.
Yes.
That would be the amendment. And then to duplicate the current paragraph for April 2019.
Correct.
Okay, that was a motion for an amendment. Do I have a second for that?
Second.
Okay, second, Commissioner Hammack-Boyle. Are there questions about what's being asked here? Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. And I should say that nothing prevents the board in the future from taking action anyhow. This is really advisory for what a future board can follow. So, but it is basically that. Yes, Commissioner Hammack-Boyle.
I would like to suggest, too, that we continue maybe our own action research on connecting with other districts that have flipped the times and what times have worked well for their elementary schools, because I know that just because there isn't research doesn't mean that that's okay. So I just think we need to dig a little deeper and get more information.
Fair enough. Any other comments or questions about this timeline? Okay, then I'll call the question. All those in favor of the start time timeline as amended, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. So we'll see how this goes. Great, thank you, everyone. Thank you very much to the Start Times Committee for all the work you've done on this. It's very, very well done. Appreciate it. All right, let us adjourn to committee. And we have several policies before us, as well as a community survey and a referendum timeline. So first, policy 411 is before us. This is a policy on equal educational opportunities. It's a revision. Actually, it's just a small additions to the policy on equal educational opportunities. So someone on the P&G, you want to comment on that? Commissioner Luganville first.
Well, I should add, too, that adding those words, sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression, under the list of protections, we've actually already done that as a board on one previous policy pertaining to our scholarship programs, and we did that earlier, I think a couple months ago. But we first brought up this in Policy and Governance in May of 2015. Just as some background, we've had staff attend trainings with the AIDS Resource Center of Wisconsin. We've had staff attend a training on transgender considerations that was through the Risk Management Consortium that we belong to, that Dan Vandewater had us involved in. So we've been doing a lot of research and a lot of homework, I guess you could say, on the topic. What we're really looking at here in terms of the policy is adding our transgender and gender nonconforming students as a protected class on a non-discrimination statement. A number of other school districts have done this. Where the big difference lies, and where often the community has a lot of emotions about it, is what that implementation looks like. So I can speak a little bit to that, and on what current practices in our system, and what, I can't speak for what will be developed in terms of the rules, but I think I can speak for what the spirit of the development of the rules will be. So currently, if there's a transgender student, we work with that student, with their counselor, with their parent or guardian, with the folks in the school on making reasonable accommodations for that student for the sake of their privacy, their safety, and their time in our education system. What I can tell you in terms of an accommodation, and maybe to answer some of the concerns brought about tonight, one of the hot topics on this issue is bathrooms and changing rooms and locker rooms. What some school districts have done in the past is they've opened it up and said that a student may use the restroom or locker room that they identify with. What I can tell you, as far as I'm aware, the committee was not looking at that as really the direction we want to go, and we're really hoping to build on current practice, which is that there would be that there's a single stall restroom area you could call it an all-gender restroom or a single-stall room that would be made as an accommodation to that student so that they have the privacy and the safety there. Not really impacting the other students in the school, but there as a accommodation there for that student. So in terms of, there is guidance from Title IX and the U.S. Department of Education on this, and it's something that is actually a little difficult from where a school board sits because we don't see any guidance from the state level, but we do see it from the U.S. Department of Education. And there was some legislation that the state was looking at, but actually as it sits, that legislation would not inhibit our school district from still allowing for a single stall restroom area made in as an additional accommodation, and it wouldn't prohibit us from doing things like training staff on the topic or allowing for students to work with their counselor and teachers on their pronoun that is preferred or the name that they would prefer to be have used in the school day and in the classroom. So we do have guidance, though, from Title IX and the U.S. Department of Education that this is something that school districts should look at, and that's why we've been doing our due diligence on it, and that's why you see it tonight. And I think that an administrator could certainly speak to the development of the rules if this were to be something we move forward on. And what I do know and what we were told in our last committee meeting is that they're going to be working with DPI resource, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Hardebeck, but working with DPI resources and looking at really the best practices that protect the students and protect ourselves as a district.
That would be great if you could address that. Go ahead.
Well, DPI is in the process of developing guidelines for school districts, and we would not take to developing a rule until we got that guidance from DPI. We do not have a timeline from them in terms of when to expect that, but we have been told it's coming.
So that's about all I have.
Okay, thank you. Very informative. Commissioner Hammack-Boyle.
Yeah, Patty, do you want to go up to the bottom so people in the audience can see that the policy is referenced quite heavily? I just want them to see.
Yes, because one of the questions is what was the basis of your decisions from one of the people in the who made the comments. I think it was John. Guidance from Title IX is one of those, is the basis, and you had mentioned some of those other resources.
Well, one thing I should do is commend our district for the work that it has done on this, because staff members have been very, I think, taking a very proactive approach to doing trainings on this topic, but also in the past, prior to us bringing it up in committee, there have been things on an individual basis that have been done. But really what we're looking at here is in policy, having it as a system-wide, as a system-wide basis as a protected class, our transgender students, so that we're not going to have issues of inequities or inequalities within the school day for those students. Make sure that we have unity across the board, that this is the expectation as outlined in our policies.
Okay, and so that, John also had the question, what difference does this make in the future? One is the equity issue, right? That's really a big part of this, correct? Okay. Commissioner Duax.
Well, I'd just like to say this may be one of the policies that we're continually looking at, because we're always looking to have advisement or rules that we can go by. And I think that the mood of the thing is to make everybody comfortable, not just the transgender student that has those issues, but all the students in the school. So I know that was one of your concerns that you voiced, that all students should be comfortable, and I think that's at the top of our list of making it work.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you for those thoughts. My thought as I was listening to Commissioner Luganville was that very thing, that we want all of our students to feel accepted and safe and included and comfortable so they can focus on their learning. And I understand that people have opinions, but I'm not interested in really mandating to our professionals that are in the building every day with students on, who's using what bathroom and when. That's, we're talking about, we're supposed to be up here at 30,000 feet. That's not our work. I sounded like my previous board member, right? So I'm 100% in support of not discriminating against people based on their gender identity or gender expression, which is what this policy says. It says nothing about bathrooms. It just says we're not going to discriminate against people, which seems to me to be a rather no-brainer.
Other comments from board members? Commissioner Hamilton-Boyle.
I'd like to bring up too the fact that we have our goals that address the social and emotional of the development of the whole child, and certainly this addresses that as well.
Anything else? Okay, so before we decide what to do, I always forget this, is there is public input after we have our discussion at committee. So is there any other further public input on this question, similar to the other one? Sure. We don't allow discussion with the public at ours, but you can certainly ask the question. We can discuss it here, but we can't like discuss back and forth. So you're welcome to ask a question up here. You can come. You have to come up here to do it. So can you press that button and then we can? It shows the. Jason, I don't know if you can show him.
There we go. Thank you. So what you're talking about is approving a separate bathroom for somebody?
Well,
No?
Go ahead. Just finish your statement. Go ahead. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So the answer is no, but go ahead. Do you want to comment on
Well,
that?
what I can say is that our policy, again, we're 30,000 feet up. I tried to kind of explain the thematics of all of this and what this will look like, potentially, but what we're looking at here is just adding them to our non-discrimination statements. However, what is current practice, as far as I'm aware, is that if there is a student, for whether it's for safety or security, there have been accommodations made to allow them to use a single stall restroom that's currently available in the school.
Commissioner Vu.
I know that bathroom is only a small issue regarding this sexual orientation and gender identity or gender expression. But is it my understanding that the elementary school don't have gender neutral bathroom?
I don't know the details of every one of our schools, but in our schools there are bathrooms that are single stall bathrooms that are used by adults primarily, but they are available to families and others to use them as needed. They're not locked or somehow located in a spot that would not be available to anybody using or in the school. They're not identified specifically as gender-neutral bathrooms or anything like that. They're just single-stall, single-use bathrooms.
My concern then is that it's not a matter of equality. I think it's a matter of resource and priority at the moment. If we are not equipped, we could be challenged tomorrow to be equipped. And we are looking at a lot of pressing issue. And I wonder, because the state is letting the local to interpret its own policy and create its own policy, we as a board might be jumping the gun to respond to a pressure that is not timely appropriate to initiate.
So are we interested in finding out that information as the board before going further? Other comments or response to that? Commissioner Johnson.
I'm ready to do a first reading.
Commissioner.
I am as well.
Commissioner Zhang.
I think that there has been a lot of work going into this. The professionals that had advised us and the committee that has done their work, I think it will be I don't think it will be a benefit to throw it back to them or to not continue forward with this. As far as I understand, if we need to change something, we as a board still can. This is fluid, and so I am also in favor of moving forward.
Okay. All right. Just for me, I think what Commissioner Johnson said, that we should not be discriminating on those things. And I think we'll find out from administration how they can make those accommodations when they start developing the rules. And if there's concern, we can get a report on how that's going. And the community can, if the community asks us for that, we can certainly do that and find out how it's working out. So I'm comfortable with that part of it. Commissioner Duax?
For this particular issue, and there are others, of course, but for this particular issue, I think we need a non-discrimination statement that nothing can be harmed by doing that. So I'm for going ahead.
Okay, so let's do a reading. Do I have any volunteers? We don't need everyone to read. Commissioner Johnson? Okay.
Just so you don't make Commissioner Zhang, because he doesn't sound that great tonight. The Board of Equal Educational Opportunities for 11. The Board of Education endorses the principle of equal educational opportunity. It is the policy of the Board of Education to maintain an educational environment that supports the inclusion, safety, and privacy of all students. No person shall be denied admission to any public school or be denied participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be discriminated against in any curricular, extracurricular, pupil services, recreational, or other program or activity because of the student's sex, race, religion, color, national origin, ancestry, creed, pregnancy, marital or parental status, physical, mental, emotional, or learning disability, or sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. In determining the qualifications for participation, all students shall be judged against the same predetermined qualifying standards in a manner that is fair and objective. Barrier-free access to school facilities shall be provided to the extent that no student with disabilities is denied an opportunity to participate in a district program available to students without disabilities. Reasonable efforts shall be made to identify unserved, handicapped, disabled students of this district eligible for special education and/or related services. Each identified student shall be provided with a free and appropriate public education, including a program of educationally related services deemed essential for the educational success of that student. Such a program of special education services shall be provided in the least restrictive environment and in barrier-free facilities. To the maximum extent appropriate to the student's handicap, disability, a handicapped disabled student shall be placed in an educational setting with non-handicapped disabled students, or less severely handicapped disabled students. Children of homeless individuals and unaccompanied youth not in the physical custody of a parent/guardian, residing in the district shall have equal access to the same free, appropriate education, including comparable services as provided to other children and youth who reside in the district. Homeless children and unaccompanied youth shall not be required to attend a separate school or program for homeless children and shall not be stigmatized by district personnel. Students may be considered handicapped or disabled under this policy even if they are not covered by the district's special education policies. The superintendent of schools shall be responsible for the administration of this policy and shall have the authority to develop and monitor appropriate and effective rules and regulations, compliance procedures, and reporting requirements. Reports regarding the effectiveness of this policy will be submitted periodically to the Board of Education by the superintendent of schools.
All right, thank you. So we'll bring this to the board next time. If you have more questions, bring them, and that's when we'll vote on it or not. Okay, thank you, and thank you for the public comments on this. We appreciate that. So next on our agenda is Policy 222, Administrative Contracts. Let me pull it up here, Administrative Contracts. So if I understand it right, this is because the language was out of date, and we had to replace that. Okay. So that's what it is before us. So, board members, I didn't have any comments myself. Do you have any board members? Or do we have a summary from P&G? Okay, Commissioner Johnson.
Was this WASB sample language?
It was, okay.
We always look at the WASB policies to see if we've missed anything.
We do go through it and adapt it to our own needs and to our district. So this isn't totally taken from WASB. We've looked at it pretty thoroughly to put down what you see here, but it's new policy, so it's all in yellow.
Commissioner Yong?
Is it just me, or is it trending that as we change or modify the policy, it just keeps getting longer? Every one of them, it seems like it's just getting longer, and I don't know if it's a positive or not, because I myself like things to be simple and direct.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is some of this just based from statute that from WASB coming out of statute?
I assure you, Commissioner, that nobody wants it shorter than the Policy and Governance Committee. But there are many contingencies, as you well know.
Okay. Sounds like everyone's ready for a first reading. Is that accurate? Okay, so we can give Commissioner Johnson a break. Maybe we can take turns. I don't know if we want to start. Whoever wants to start and just do however far you feel comfortable. You want to start on that end? Okay. Thank you.
Administrative contracts. This policy applies to all positions of employment in the district for which the...
Could I stop you for a second? I didn't take any community input on this. Let's see if is there anything on this? Any community input on this policy? Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Administrative contracts. This policy applies to all positions of employment in the district for which the employee and the school board will execute an administrator contract under state law, including the superintendent. Within this policy, such positions of employment and the individuals holding such positions shall be referred to as administrators. To the extent required by state law, no administrator may be employed or dismissed except by a majority vote of the full membership of the board, at least 4 votes. The board and each administrator employed by the board will mutually execute a written employment contract. However, the board shall not enter into an employment contract with any administrator for any period of time for which the individual is already under a contract of employment with another school board.
The maximum term renewal, non-renewal, and possible extension of each administrator contract shall be governed by applicable state law by the discretionary decision of the board permitted by state law and by the rights and obligations that are established within the contract itself. The board shall formally approve or reject any proposed modification to or the termination of any administrative contract.
The board shall establish the salary and other compensation of administrators who are employed by the district. The board's ability to individualize certain aspects of administrator contracts, including certain aspects of the structure and levels of the administrator's benefits and total compensation, is limited by various state and federal laws. Further, not all terms and conditions of an administrator's employment are contractual. To the extent consistent with the state and federal law, such non-contractual terms and conditions of employment remain subject to the managerial discretion of the board and the superintendent at all times.
If the board has approved an administrator's employment and the terms and conditions of the individual's administrator contract, and provided that all applicable contingencies have been satisfied, then the superintendent may execute any administrator's employment contract other than his or her own on behalf of the board. The full board shall execute the contracts of the superintendent and executive directors. The board president and clerk, or such other board officers as may be alternatively designated by the board, shall execute any other administrator's board-approved contract.
bathrooms.
If any administrator does not continuously hold a license or a permit or provisional license that is required by his or her employment contract, or if he or she is otherwise not legally eligible to hold the position identified in his or her contract, then 1, she shall be considered to be in material breach of the contract, which may lead to termination, and/or 2, the contract may be deemed void by operation of law. Each administrator who is required to be licensed, i.e. certified, by law or as a condition of employment established by the district is expected to provide a copy of his or her current license to the Human Resources Office and remain licensed in good standing, including knowing the expiration date of his or her license and meeting the requirements for maintenance renewal in a timely manner.
Great, thank you. All right, so we'll bring this to the board next time as a resolution. All right, we went through 3 policies tonight for you guys.
Not yet.
Doing more? Oh, sorry. I was already looking ahead. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Okay, yes, that was the second policy, but one more. Policy 458 on wellness, and if I remember right, that one's even longer, right? Okay, so let me pull that up on my screen here. I was looking ahead already. Any comments or questions about this or anything from policy and governance? Okay, Commissioner Johnson?
Well, I'm going to jump on Commissioner Zhang's bandwagon and complain about the length. Seems to me perhaps we're getting beyond what a policy should be, which is, kind of broad principles, and very specifically getting into the number of minutes of recess, which seems to me quite detailed, and that, while we're studying a broad policy on encouraging, fostering physical activity, that perhaps the number of minutes of recess is too much. So I guess my preference would be to have them take it back and see what can be moved into the rules. Some other kind of just concerns about details that, are we really going to find 60 minutes for adolescents to have, if they're not in FIAD in a particular day? Are we really expecting that half of FIAD time is going to be moderately or vigorously active? I mean, I'm not sure that things like, the archery unit, for example, or badminton, that those things would qualify. I think it just seems we're being very prescriptive here. I'm specifically opposed to the 3 semesters of physical education, and I know we've discussed that previously, and nobody else was interested in pursuing that, but I continue to hear that from parents, and I tell them to write to you because I agree with them. And I don't know if everybody was here for that discussion or paying attention back then, but the state does allow us to supplement or substitute, extracurricular sports instead of up to 1 semester of FIAD. So that's what I'm talking about there.
Excuse me, point of order, are we discussing this
Well, I think that's
policy?
Isn't it something in here that?
About badminton?
No, my point was, if on page 3, students will be moderately or vigorously active for at least half of the class time during their FIAD classes.
I thought your objection was for the length of the administrator contract.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, the length of the student wellness policy. For
We did
458.
We could-
discuss that. We talked about the length of this policy, and it was felt by Ms. Brown, I think, that we should have all of that in it, but we certainly can discuss that again.
Okay. Oh, are you finished, Commissioner Dukes? Okay, Commissioner Hambuck-Boyle.
We had this conversation, because when I read it too, I had the same concern, Wendy Sue, and we were told that because it was mandated through the USDA, and that's the policy. And when we did go into WASB to check and see, theirs were just as long, which is not the case usually. So we are bringing it forward to the board in the way that has been dictated to do this policy. I think we if you want us to take it back and we call Washington and ask them if we can change it, we could do that, but I'm not sure we can.
So can I just clarify that? So you're saying the USDA is specifying that it has to be in policy and we can't have some of that in rules?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah, before I vote on it, I guess I'd like the link to the USDA requirements on what they do require. So I guess some other, just.
Well, how about we go, so I think then, if that's the case, if that needs to be, then we need to go, like Commissioner Johnson has, I think, specific things in here that she would like to give feedback on, and we should just go page by page. I have a couple myself.
Can we have Sue?
Can we have Sue Brown?
Sure,
here,
absolutely.
please?
Yeah, come on up.
We had this is a prototype from the DPI website, and in policy and governance, we also went to the WASB website, very, very similar policies. The things that have to be included in the policy are things like school meals, other foods sold at schools. There has to be a PE piece, a nutrition education piece as well. To develop this policy, to bring to the Policy and Governance Committee, we formed a work group which included a health teacher, a PE teacher, a partnership coordinator, and myself. And then we brought this, so everyone had input. Jim Schmidt and I think Abby had input into it as well. And then we brought it forward to the Policy and Governance Committee. But I hear you as far as the length, yeah.
Yeah, for a policy it is long, and but I'll take your word at it that it has to be that way.
Like you say, this is from the DPI website. If you'd like me to contact them and get clarification, if they could put some of this in rules, I could certainly am willing to do that and to work with them.
What does the board think? I think that might be helpful.
I would like that.
Okay. Like you say, that's fine. This is what DPI does have on their website. However, this was their prototype.
Yeah, the question is, is it mandated or is that what they're recommending? Or, yeah.
Okay.
Commissioner Johnson.
Right, so if we have to have a section on school meals and a section on nutrition education, that doesn't, just because they've proposed a prototype doesn't mean that we need to have that much detail in those sections. So I would like, again, a link or an email where I can find the USDA requirements of what needs to be in the policy before we get into the details of the things in each section. And then I also wondered if we've got, well, it says school wellness, so I thought we had a student and a staff wellness policy, so I wonder, what the effect of that, if we're going to be repealing the staff wellness, so that it's just all inclusive here, and then wondered why sleep wasn't included as a physical wellness policy.
Commissioner Luganbill.
So I just wanted to pull it up, and because we did have this discussion, and we all agreed with the points being made. And I mean, we wouldn't have brought it out if there was no reason for it. Under, there's a site right here, Local School Wellness Policy Requirements. And it's Section 204 of the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act, added Section 9A. And there's a link right here, and I can send it to the board if you wish to table it, and I can send it so you can read it. But it includes a sample wellness policy, which is, it's about the same length as ours, the same length as the WASB one. I mean, it's very specific what we have to include in our policy. So the one maybe light at the end of the tunnel with this is with our policy. I believe it includes quite a bit of review of it. So I'm certain that we'll be bringing it back. It'll be a periodic review. I'm certain that we'll be well, here it is. This policy will be assessed and updated as indicated at least every 3 years, but I'm assuming we're going to be looking at it sooner because things are coming down the pike, usually quicker than every 3 years. But I just want to put that out there, that this literally is right from the USDA, the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act, and it's almost exactly what we have. The main additions that we made to it as a committee were minimal. Most of this is the mandate.
So even like the minutes and so forth in here are straight from there?
Yeah, everything. I mean, everything. I mean, here it is. Water. I mean, they have water cups and jugs will be available in the cab. I mean, they have everything. on this
There's
sample.
a manual on this.
It's,
There's- yeah.
And I can send this document if you want me to, or,
Commissioner Dulac.
I have a question for Ms. Brown. Did you have a concern about a deadline that you, didn't you have a
I
deadline
am
you needed?
concerned DPI is going to be out reviewing us, and I'd like to get this updated as soon as possible. They'll be out in April to update this. And the things that aren't contained in this policy are really regulatory. Most of the things, or all of these things, we're already doing as a district, except documenting and then forming the wellness committee, from my understanding.
Okay, Commissioner Luganville.
oh, sorry.
So I'm a little in a bind because it would be nice to verify that this exact language is required, whether or not board members feel comfortable going forward, just saying that it is. Because I know you have some questions about specifics, and could we actually change some of those specifics? Could we actually do that?
Well-
And if it's required in this language, then we can't, right? So I'd have to know if we can actually amend it at all, is a question. And I know Commissioner Johnson has some suggestions on it. So I don't want to amend it if it's required, so I don't know ahead of time what can we amend, what can we change, what can't.
This was taken from a prototype on the DPI website. We then sent it to, like, the physical education piece. We worked with the PE teachers, so we're meeting these requirements right now, and it was very similar to what was on the DPI website.
Commissioner Johnson.
So I'll play devil's advocate. The referendum fails, we cut FIAD, and now we're in violation of a policy. So I have no doubt that this is from a prototype, but we all of the time take WASB prototypes or DPI prototypes and change them to fit our needs. So I need clarification on, we need a policy on school meals. I believe that, but I don't believe that every word necessarily in each section is required by law. If it was, the federal government would just pass a law and tell us what to do. If
But
we
there
have to
is-
pass a policy, then they give us some parameters to do that.
There is an assessment piece also, so we have to go through these and make sure that we're assessing the parameters and that, you know, we are meeting the requirements. So if we do have assessments that we have to do to make sure that anything put in the policy is meeting our requirements.
So,
And if things change, could we not change the policy at that time?
Commissioner Luganville.
And if I could, I'll just pull up this again, just because I think it's help, and I think it'd be pretty easy. I can send this as an email, and people can read it, and we can bring it back if that would be the board's pleasure. But this is right from the USDA. I'll just read this. And this is what it says. This basic district-level wellness policy template meets the minimum federal standards for local school wellness policy implementation under the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act, and minimum best practice standards accepted in the education and public health fields. So it's, and then it says, where appropriate, the template includes optional policy language, which I don't think we even took, but it said you can use it to establish a stronger policy to meet silver or gold levels. So, I mean, what we have, I don't want to meet the gold level, that'd be 20 pages long, but I mean, what we have here is, it literally says this meets the minimum federal standards for a local school wellness policy. That's just what it says, so.
It's federal.
And I mean,
Federal.
yeah.
We've had 18 months, we've had 1,800 pages of new policies and regulations. So we're really getting inundated with.
Commissioner Hangwell-Boyle.
So Sue, what you're telling us too is that we're being held accountable for this policy by an assessment that you are required to do. The rules in essence would be how we would meet this. So I'm thinking that as much as we talked about the same things at Policy and Governance, I think this is the policy, but I don't mind asking again and bringing that back to the board if that's the purview of the board.
Yeah, and that's what I will ask the board, if the board's okay with that, and it gives some board members a chance to just check on that if they want. I don't want to delay you too much in getting, that. I had some small questions, like, there's web links in there. Well, what if those go bad? Then is there a better way of referencing those and stuff? But I think yeah, right. So What's the board's pleasure on this? Are you comfortable waiting 2 weeks to read this so that board members can review some of that and get the links? Or well, sure, at some point, and get it to everyone. I just need to hear from board members how they feel. I mean, we can do a first reading. Not everyone would be comfortable with that, or we can wait 2 weeks and do a first reading. Well, that's what I'm checking. I won't do a poll here because we don't usually do votes.
I'm right. I mean,
We are in committee, right? Commissioner Vu.
I have a small question that might or might not relate. In budget committee, we start to look at building fees, building rental. And I haven't seen that yet. I wonder if voting with this policy, which I understand is mandated by the federal, does it mean we are obligated to provide building for use after school that relate to what we are saying in this policy? I see a lot of school will offer that kind of language. And if parent or student or club were to want to use buildings after hours to promote those activities, are we obligated to let them use the building for free? Do we have a policy that align with each other, compensate with each other? And ultimately, what happens if we don't comply with the federal law? Are we losing the money from the nutrition program? What else?
Right now, there's not funding tied to this. What the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act states for competitive foods sold in schools is it's up to a half an hour after the end of the school day. So we have to meet the Smart Snacks requirements for food sold during the school day and then half an hour afterwards. After that, we don't need to meet the Smart Snacks requirements as a school. As far as building use and tying that into wellness policies, that would be at the board's discretion, I think. And we have a building use policy, but it also includes charges for rental fees and things like that, which this doesn't address, and I don't think that it should.
Okay, so we have two options here. We can delay it to do a first reading next time, or we can do a reading tonight, and board members next time can vote for or against it. I do not know if you can amend it, because then it wouldn't be part of the first reading. So we would actually have to table it for another first reading that time, which would delay it further than just waiting 2 weeks to read it. So I do not know how board members will vote on it next time, and I will not ask you that. My feeling is if you're comfortable, Sue, with waiting till, because it wouldn't be voted on till the second meeting in April. If you're comfortable with that, I'm okay with that if other board members are.
Our timeline is very tight at that point. Yeah,
Is it?
and I don't know that this is going to change anything.
Okay. Dr. Hardebeck.
I wonder if the board would entertain a first reading, and then if there are questions and we find that the research that the committee did was not extensive enough, or it didn't bring forth, as Commissioner Luginbill has said, the minimal policy that we've been told that we have to have. At that next meeting, you could make either an adjustment, or you could request amendment or something like that. But I do think that we are, we do have a very tight timeline, and I feel confident that the committee has done due diligence in including the items in the policy that are required.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
And I feel frustrated when the committee has so many questions as well, that we could probably anticipate that the rest of us would have a lot of questions and could have sent us, the USDA links and some of those things ahead of time, instead of telling us that we have to pass a 6-page policy, or we're going to be against a timeline in 2 weeks. Like, we should be planning ahead better.
Agreed. But given that, I'm willing to have a first reading, and next time, we can vote against it or make amendments to it. It is a formal resolution before the board, and we can do that.
I can start.
Okay, go ahead.
School wellness, 458. The Eau Claire Area School District, ECASD, is committed to optimal development of every student. The ECASD believes that for students to have the opportunity to achieve personal, academic, developmental, and social success, we need to create positive, safe, and health-promoting learning environments at every level and every setting throughout the school year. Research shows that two components, good nutrition and physical activity before, during, and after the school day, are strongly correlated with positive student outcomes. This policy outlines the ECSD's approach to ensuring environments and opportunities for all students to participate, to practice healthy eating and physical activity behaviors throughout the school day while minimizing commercial distractions. I could go. School meals. The ECSD is committed to serving healthy meals to children with plenty of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and fat-free and low-fat, moderate in sodium, low in saturated fat, and 0 grams added trans fat per serving, nutrition label or manufacturer specifications, and to meet the nutrition needs of school children within their calorie requirements. Local produce will be purchased through the ECASD's prime vendor when available, and feasibility of additional local produce purchase will be explored. All schools within the ECASDs participate in the USDA Children Nutrition Program, including the National School Lunch Program, NSLP, and the School Breakfast Program, SBP. All schools within the ECSD are committed to offering school meals through the NSLP and SBP programs. Bullet point number 1, all school meals are accessible to all students. Number 2, the ECASD offers reimbursable school meals school meals that meet USDA nutrition standards and reflect student preferences. Bullet point number 3, drinking water will be available to all students throughout the school day and throughout every school campus, including during meal times. All school nutrition program staff will meet or exceed hiring and annual continuing education requirements in the USDA professional standards for children nutrition professionals.
Any groups or organizations selling food items outside the school meal programs, that is competitive foods and beverages, will be strongly encouraged to sell items which meet the USDA Smart Snacks and School Nutrition Standards at a minimum, but will follow the Department of Public Instruction's guidance to allow up to 2 fundraiser exemptions per student organization per school year. A fundraiser cannot exceed 2 weeks' time. An exempt fundraiser may sell foods that are not allowable under the Smart Snacks rule, but may not compete directly with the sale of reimbursable meals. All groups offering food at the school campus will be strongly encouraged to offer items which meet or exceed the USDA Smart Snacks and School Nutrition Standards. Exemptions may be allowed at the discretion of the school principal. Continuing on, the ECASD promotes a positive learning environment by providing healthy celebrations. Ideas for healthy parties and snack ideas, including non-food celebration ideas, are available at the following link. The ECASD supports smart snacks in schools. A list of foods and beverages that meet smart snacks nutrition standards is available to parents and teachers by accessing the following website, which is listed. The ECASD supports using non-food rewards. A list of alternative ways to reward children is available on the following link.
Nutrition promotion. Students and staff will receive consistent nutrition messages throughout schools, classrooms, gymnasiums, and cafeterias. The Eau Claire Area School District will promote healthy food and beverage choices for all students throughout the school campus, as well as encourage participation in school meal programs. All foods and beverages marketed or promoted to students on the school campus during the school day will meet or exceed the USDA Smart Snacks and School Nutrition Standards. Food advertising and marketing includes, but is not limited to, the following: brand names, trademarks, logos, or tags, except when placed on a physically present food or beverage product or its container. Displays, such as on vending machine exteriors. Corporate brand logo name or trademark on school equipment such as marquees, message boards, scoreboards, and backboards. Corporate brand logo name or trademark on cups used for beverage dispensing, menu boards, coolers, trash cans, and other food service equipment. I can take it. Remember?
Yeah, and then I'll finish.
Okay, nutrition education. The Eau Claire School District aims to teach, model, encourage, and support healthy eating by students. Nutrition education is designed to provide students with the knowledge and skills necessary to promote and protect their health and wellness. Nutrition education will include enjoyable, developmentally appropriate, culturally relevant, and participatory activities such as cooking demonstrations or lessons, promotions, taste testing, and school gardens. Nutrition education will be included in the health curriculum so that instruction is sequential and follows the national and Wisconsin model academic standards for nutrition. Nutrition education will also be integrated into other classroom instruction through subjects such as math, science, language arts, social sciences, and elective subjects. The ECASD teaches students nutrition education using scientifically based, up-to-date nutrition information consistent with the Dietary Guidelines for Americans. The ECASD will include in the health education curriculum the following essential topics on healthy eating: food guidance from MyPlate, reading and using USDA's food labels, balancing food intake and physical activity, social influences on healthy eating, including media, family, peers, and culture, how to find valid information or services related to nutrition and dietary behavior, resisting peer pressure related to unhealthy dietary choices and behavior, influencing, supporting, or advocating for others' healthy dietary behavior.
Physical education. The ECASD will provide students with physical education using an age-appropriate sequential physical education curriculum consistent with national and state standards for physical education. The physical education curriculum will promote the benefits of a physically active lifestyle and will help students develop skills to engage in lifelong healthy habits, as well as incorporate essential health education concepts. All students will be provided equal opportunity to participate in physical education classes. Bullet 1, all ECASD students will participate in physical education that meets or exceeds state standards. All ECASD elementary students in each grade will receive physical education for at least an average of 60 minutes per week throughout the school year. All ECASD middle school students will receive physical education in one grade level. Classes are 45 to 55 minutes in length and will meet every other day for the entire school year. All district high school students will receive 3 semesters of physical education prior to graduation. Classes are 45 to 55 minutes long and will meet every day for 1 semester. Students will be moderately to vigorously active for at least 50% of class time during most or all physical education class sessions. All physical education classes in ECASD are taught by licensed teachers who are certified and endorsed to teach physical education. Specially designed physical education programs and or modifications are made in order for all students to participate in physical education regardless of their abilities or limitations. Physical activity. Children and adolescents shall participate in 60 minutes of physical activity every day. Schools will offer students a variety of physical activity opportunities that are in addition to and not as a substitute for physical education. Bullet 1, all elementary schools will offer at least 20 minutes of recess on all or most days during the year. Outdoor recess will be offered when weather is feasible for outdoor play. Active recess programming will be utilized to create universal participation by offering multiple activities at recess, designate different areas of play throughout the playground, provide equipment to decrease congestion on play structures, and provide group names led by staff. In the event that the school or ECASD must conduct indoor recess, teachers and staff promote physical activities for students to the extent practicable. The ECSD recommends teachers provide short 3 to 5 minute physical activity breaks to students during and between classroom time. The ECSD offers opportunities, e.g., including activity clubs, open gym, intramurals, and varsity sports for students to participate in physical activity before and or after the school day. The ECSD will support active transport to and from school, such as walking or biking. Other activities that promote student wellness, the ECSD will integrate wellness activities across the entire school setting, not just in the cafeteria, other food and beverage venues, and physical activity facilities. The ECSD will coordinate and integrate other initiatives related to physical activity, physical education, nutrition, and other wellness components, so all efforts are complementary, not duplicative, and work towards the same set of goals and objectives, promoting student well-being, optimal development, and strong educational outcomes. The district will continue relationships with its community partners, including our local hospitals, Security Health, UW Extension, and Real Living in support of this wellness and policies implementation. The ECSD will promote to parents, caregivers, families, and the community the benefits of and approaches for healthy living and physical activity throughout the school year. Families will be invited to participate in school-sponsored events and will receive information about health promotion. The ECSD promotes staff member participation in health promotion programs and will support programs for staff members on healthy eating/weight management. When feasible, the ECSD will offer annual professional learning opportunities and resources for staff to increase knowledge and skills about promoting healthy behaviors for themselves and in the classroom and school. Someone want to take the next part? Go ahead, Commissioner Lugo.
Policy monitoring and implementation. The ECSD will convene an ECSD Wellness Committee that meets at least annually to establish goals for and oversee school health and safety policies and programs, including development, implementation, and periodic review and update of wellness. The Wellness Committee membership will represent all school levels, elementary and secondary schools, and may include, to the extent possible, parents and caregivers, students, representatives of the school nutrition program, school nutrition director, physical education teachers, health education teachers, school health professionals, health education teachers, school health services staff, and mental health and school social services staff, school administrators, superintendent, principal, vice principal, school board members, health professionals, agriculture professionals such as co-op members and/or farmers, and the general public. The ECASD will compile and publish an annual report to share basic information about the wellness policy and report on the progress of the schools within the ECASD and meeting wellness goals. The ECASD will actively notify households and families of the availability of the annual report through the ECASD newsletter and website. The Wellness Committee will update and/or modify the wellness policy based on the needs of the annual progress reports and/or as ECASD priorities change, community needs change, wellness goals are met, new health science, information, and technology emerges, and new federal or state guidance or standards are issued. The wellness policy will be assessed and updated as indicated at least every 3 years.
Okay, thank you. Did you have a comment? Commissioner Johnson.
Well, and I can object the next time too, but what you just read was the Wellness Committee will update or modify the wellness policy. We can't give a committee the ability to create policy. That by statute is the work of the school board. We just said we're going to work with Security Health and Real Living. So every time we bid out insurance and bid out our EAP, we're going to create a new policy. I don't believe that all of these words are necessary.
Thank you. Okay, so we may have to do some amendments or have some amendments next time. But please send us that information. Yes, we're okay. All right. Any public input on this topic? Okay, they're all asleep. A little levity is good. A little levity is good. Okay, so now we've done 3 policies. We'll see if they'll go next time. Okay, so we'll be on the agenda for next time. All right, RFP for community survey. Abby, you got something to show us here. Great.
All right, so we talked at budget development today about the community survey RFP and our recommendations. So I have a couple of slides I'd like to share with you. We had the RFP process, and the RFPs were due on March 1st. And then we had a review committee of Commissioner Zhang, Commissioner Duex, Jim Schmidt, Scott Nofke, and myself. On March 2nd, we found that we had received 3 proposals for the community survey. The 3 companies were FEH Architects, School Perceptions, and Springstead. And at that point in time, we decided it was important for us to contact the references that were provided just to get some additional feedback, because with 3 different proposals, we wanted to make sure we had the best information to make the best decision for the district. On March 8th, we met again and we rated the 3 proposals we had. The criteria was based upon experience, based upon fee, based upon qualifications, approach, and then the timeline and the schedule and how that would work for our school district. Collectively as a committee, we decided right off the bat that FEH Architects was not a good fit for us. The references we contacted did have positive feedback, but a lot of their proposal surrounded about building referendum. And since we're not really looking at a building referendum right now, we just didn't feel that that was a good fit for the survey that we wanted to do at this point in time. School Perceptions was the second company that we looked at. The references we contacted had very positive feedback, but their proposal left us with some questions. Do they really survey the entire community? And does the proposal cost include the consulting cost that we requested in the RFP? When we looked at Springstead's proposal, the references again had very positive feedback, and they also left us with a couple of questions. Does the proposal include their consulting fees? And what type of survey only includes 400 people? So amongst the 2, the results were very, very close for the committee members. So we decided to follow up with a phone conversation, and we were able to connect with School Perceptions and Springstead on the same day at the same afternoon. We were very excited about that. School Perceptions, we learned that as part of their proposal, the cost of the survey was not included in their proposal, like the physical cost. So the printing, the postage, there was an additional charge if people chose to complete the survey on paper. There was an additional charge for them to process those paper requests. Consulting was not included in the RFP. And their survey is a census survey, and it may not be representative of our district's demographics or our district's likely voters in a referendum. When we followed up with Springstead, we learned that their survey is a sampling survey, and it's designed to be representative of our community demographics and voters. And their consulting costs were not included in the RFP either. So based upon everything that we learned, we concluded that we would propose to move forward with the Springstead proposal. They offered us 2 options as far as costs. If they do a survey cost for 22 questions, the price would be $15,938. If they do 27 questions, we'd be looking at $18,238. Their survey is a phone survey, which is very, very different from the other 2 surveys that we looked at. What I can tell you is that I had a conversation with the company tonight because we had some questions from budget development this morning. One of the questions was, how do we know that the 400 are representative of our district and of our demographics? And so they have a formula that's specifically used for this type of surveying, and their goal is to get within a 4.5% margin of error in the survey. So they really do try very, very strongly to get those 400 results to be representative of the demographics and the likely voters in our community. They do not call from an 800 number. That was a concern from budget development. They actually have 2 companies that call, that does the calling for them. And they will, one of the first questions that they ask is, we're completing a survey for the Eau Claire School District. Is now an okay time to take about 10 to 15 minutes of your time to get the survey answered? If they say no, then they ask for a better time, and then they will reach out to them again. As part of this survey, one of the things that we were concerned about was how can we educate our community in addition of some of those things that we need that we've been talking about, but perhaps the taxpayers or our community hasn't heard yet. So they have 2 approaches to that. Before they start asking questions, they can give an introduction of some of those things that we want to make sure that they're educated about before providing their response. Or we can build the questions to test and probe for a hierarchy of what our community will support. And it's very methodical the way that they do this. And of course, the district and district representatives, board representatives would have a say in helping address those questions and making sure that that is the information we want to get from our community. Another question that came up this morning was, a lot of people don't have home phones anymore. They have cell phones. And so this has not been an issue for them. They have access to public databases with public records, and people may list their cell phones. They also have privately purchased databases, and so a lot of people that are changing to cell phones, they haven't had an issue of getting a hold of people to be representative of their district. The last question that we had from budget development this morning was, what if a translator is needed? And that's not an issue either. They've done a lot of surveys, and some of the requirements for one school district was they needed a Spanish interpreter. So anybody doing a survey had to be able to interpret Spanish. The other language that was common was Hmong, and so I thought that that would be very representative of our community as well. The other thing that I learned today, that when they're doing the survey and they're on the phone, they're rotating the questions. So just because I'm answering question number 1 doesn't mean that's the same as Jason would have for number 1 and Patty. So that way they can really get a differential and they're not kind of stacked against one another. So I found that very interesting, and I thought that was important to share as well. Along with Springstead, we could opt to have them do some consulting, and that consulting can be decided on after we get the results of the survey. If there's an area that we feel that we need assistance with, they really have 2 options for providing additional consulting services. They can be billed hourly, and just based upon the work that we need done and the level of work, we have the hourly rates. Or the option, which is commonly used as well, is to just say, we're going to use up to X dollar amount and kind of do it on a retainer base as what we need. But that doesn't have to be decided at this point in time. Really, I think the question among the board that we'll need to be making a decision on is, do we want to move forward with this process? And if so, do we want to think we're going to have a 22 question or a 27 question survey for our community?
Okay, good. Thanks, Abby. And I want to mention a couple other things in Budget Committee that came up that we would probably want in our resolution if we bring this as a resolution next time. And I want to thank Commissioner Vu for bringing this up. In the resolution, that we would have what the purpose is of doing the survey, so that it guides the people that are developing the questions for the survey. And the things that mainly Commissioner Vu came up with was, one was to increase the awareness of our financial and education situation, so sort of the education piece. Receive information from the community on their level of knowledge of our financial and education situation. And the third, of course, would be their level of support for different referendum options and possible outcomes of winning or losing a referendum. What is their level of support given those possible outcomes? So that was what we listed as the purposes of this survey, and we would consider that in the resolution. And then the next point, if the board approved that, we'd want some kind of committee to help the company develop those questions based on that guidance. And so the other question I'll have for the board is, would you just want the budget committee to be that committee to do it? Would you like a designated different committee to do that? So that would be the other question I'll have for you. So any comments so far?
May I add just another quick piece?
Yeah, go ahead.
We also talked about having the opportunity for board members to submit the type of questions that they would like to be addressed. So the committee who's going to craft the question can take into consideration.
Right, we discussed how we should, like if it was the budget committee that's helping the company with the questions, how would you like the board as a whole to give input? Would you want to just like send questions to a point person to do that? Would you want a work session on it? You know, some are more efficient than others on this. I'm hoping that if we've got this guidance that the board would want to, in the end, see all the questions and approve them separately, because that could lead to micromanaging what the questions look like. So I was hoping that we could just figure out an efficient way where you could send your request to that committee to do that. Commissioner Hammack-Boyle.
So you're thinking more about submitting questions as opposed to a work session?
Yeah, we could do a work session if you wanted, and that was the other option that was discussed in Budget Committee. And we would want to do that soon, relatively soon though.
One of the questions I wanted to ask Springstead, the gentleman that we talked to on the phone, was if they have kind of a general category for questions that they'd like to see covered, because they have a lot of experience doing this questioning. So, do you think we could ask that question, like, are there areas that would lead us to an answer that would clarify?
Yeah, I can certainly ask that question.
It's a good question, because they do have a lot of experience with this, yeah. Commissioner Luganbill.
I'm interested in kind of the background leading up to this process. If the budget committee had some discussions, or maybe you had some discussions about if in our community, if in the past we've carried out surveys like this ever, how we did that, if we did it in-house, if we did it with a firm, and so kind of what that looked like, and then also what you heard from other school districts that maybe have done something like this and how accurate it was.
I can give you a little bit of both. I can tell you that we actually did work with Springstead in 2008. We had a failed referendum in 06, 07. I think we all confirmed that was the year. And so Springstead actually did a community survey for us, and it wasn't specifically about a referendum. It was more, what is the community's tolerance, and what would a likely timeline be looking at to go for an operating referendum. And so based upon a couple of things that I've reviewed, and I haven't spent a lot of time reviewing it, they provided us all of the open-ended answers that were received, as well as kind of an analysis of what the questions were and how they rated and the information that came back. I can tell you, with talking to other school districts, they are very much going to a community survey before they're going to referendum to really get some guidance and to help hopefully draft those questions and make their concerns known, and also as an educational piece and just letting them know, because as much as we're out there in the public and talking about it, there's still some people that we just aren't going to reach. And so most of them that I have talked with would say that's like the easiest decision that they've made, because they are spending some money, but in most cases it's coming out to be much to their advantage. I can tell you, based upon the proposals, the success rate for both of the companies that we looked at was between 70 and 80% if the school district's board listened to what the survey told them and drafted their question, either whether it was amounts or just wording or items that they were going for. So I know that it definitely is, it's a very good resource and an investment to make. And some of the other districts that we talked to said it was a very small cost to help them be successful in a referendum. So there's no guarantees that by doing a survey that will get the outcome. There is no guarantees, because we have to wait till election day. But I know I found, in talking to the other districts, they found it very, very helpful to tell them what their community will support. A lot of the surveys will talk specifically about how much of a tax impact are you willing to bear. Is it $75? Is that $100? And so by asking some of those probing questions, you can get a very good representation from your community of, yep, okay, we know if we ask for $100, that's going to be too much, but they'll support 75. And I'm just making up numbers just based upon things that I've seen, but I think that they can be a very useful tool when going to referendum and drafting those questions. You're welcome.
Anyone else? Commissioner Johnson?
And I've already forgotten who choice number 2 was.
School perceptions?
So when they do their survey, how many people would they be sending their survey to?
They would be sending their survey to everybody in our community.
Okay. So my question then is, I think that maybe we need to just consider, it's clear we would get maybe more valid data from the third survey, but if our primary goal is to educate everybody, sending out a survey to everybody in the district would be a lot more effective to educate them. They're going to get the survey. They may not take it. They may not send it back. It may not even be accurate or representative of who sends it back, but that's going to be, we're going to be exposing everybody, as opposed to doing the third survey, which seems like we would get more valid input. So I think it depends on which approach we feel, which purpose is more important.
Good point. Essentially, you're saying of those 3, if educating is one of them, we're only educating 400 or something. Right. Yes, okay. Commissioner Duax.
I'm going to ask Abby to tell you the terms, the financial terms of that. It was very surprising.
So the cost with school perceptions, the printing, I don't think they gave us the exact cost on printing, but the postage was approximately 40 cents for each one that was mailed out when they would return the survey. And they said typically they'll get about 40% of them returned paper. That's $1.80 per survey for them to process. So even if we get 1,000 back, that's an additional $1,800 just for them to process it. That's before postage costs, it's before printing costs, and they really didn't give us a range on the printing costs. So their base price, I can tell you, was $14,400 without the printing and without the postage and without the processing fees. So we learned very quickly that, you know, the other one appears to be a little bit more money on the front end, but I think by the time you add up all the costs, it's not necessarily going to be the cheapest one. And we felt it was very important. We felt a lot more comfortable with the sampling survey because we felt their goal is to really mirror our demographics and likely voters in the referendum. We felt that would be more valuable to us as a district in helping to do the question. But I agree, Commissioner Johnson, with your point that if our goal of the survey is primarily to educate, I don't know that that Springstead would have as big of an effect as educating because they're reaching out to less people. I just think we have to decide, or the board needs to decide which route do they want to go. Do they prefer to, you know, census everybody in the community and hope to get some responses that may or may not be representative? Or do we feel more comfortable going with a smaller sample size that is more likely going to match our demographics?
Commissioner Zhang.
Going into this, school perception actually won my vote until we figure out the extra cost that was not in on the proposal. I believe we could send something out to educate the community because essentially that's what school perception is doing, just sending out mails. And I think we could do that because we're going to be paying for it anyhow, whether it's through us or through them. So I agree that we need to get to as many people as possible, but as far as having a process and a third party that does this for a living to go in and get the data that I would want, I want it from the people that I know will show up to the polls.
So really the other two purposes are primarily it. Yes, Commissioner Hammack-Boyle.
I think about a survey educating our community about our budget and about the referendum and why we need it. It's very complicated. And our school funding is very complicated. I think it's that way so that we have to take an inordinate amount of time to get our community to understand. There are many that are starting to understand because we've been doing it for quite a while already. But it's really tied to a plan that we have on connecting with our community on exactly what this referendum is going to mean to pass and what it's going to mean if it doesn't. So I'm interested to know how you put that into a survey.
That's why we work with the experts. They've done over 500 surveys, a lot of them in the Midwest, which is very, you know, comforting too. They're dealing with a lot of school districts our size, similar size. They're working with Oshkosh. Springstead is currently working with Oshkosh on theirs. School Perceptions has worked with many districts in our area as well. We talked to Menominee. We talked to, we had a handful of other districts that we talked to. So I think, again, what is the ultimate goal that we want to get out of the survey? And I think that education piece, it's not going to go away if we pick one survey over the other. Because I think we need to do it no matter what. And we've started that process, so we just need to continue with that as well.
Commissioner John.
And I believe one of the examples that they sent out had questions that did exactly that, where it was actually saying, hey, you know what, if this is not passing, what would you be interested in, you know, pretty much cutting. You know, so it's building that into the survey questions as well.
I really like the notebooks they put together after the survey, and they had asked a question like, what's your favorite thing about the school district, or what's your least favorite? And they actually gave every answer that came back. and it was quite impressive. And one of the notebooks was the teachers, the teachers, the teachers, the teachers. It just went on and on. That was their favorite thing about the district. But if I may say, in addition, I don't think the survey is the only thing we're going to do. But they have good advice for us after the survey. I think they'll be able to advise us on how much more campaigning we need to do. And I gotta say, I was more impressed by the answers I got from Springstead than I was from School Perceptions.
Oh,
They
by far.
seemed really kind of nervous and didn't give clear answers, and it was School Perceptions. So that swayed my vote.
Okay. Do you have something, Commissioner Vu? Or?
I really want to echo that unless we know exactly what we want and why we want it, the company, the vendor might not know how to cater to our need. So as a group, we really need to define that first.
So I would, after this discussion, and this clarified it a lot for me, that educational piece versus the rest of it. So again, two of those purposes we listed was receive information from the community on their level of knowledge of our financial and educational situation. That would definitely, this would do this at least for a sample, a representative sample, and a level of support for different referendums with various possible outcomes of winning or losing the referendum. Like you said, you know, if this happens, this is what the cuts would be and so forth. Would you accept that? And then really then the third now, if we go through this, is really not very high priority, the educational piece. We certainly can do that for those 400, but we obviously have to do our work anyhow. I don't know if that answers it, Charles, but I think that's where we're headed. Is the board comfortable with bringing forward next time a resolution to approve? We got two different number of questions on that we have to approve one or the other with these purposes. We could, I don't know, I guess the board, we could bring forth a resolution up to the 18,238, and if we only need the 22, that's what we could contract with, correct? We could do that as a resolution.
Yeah. I like that idea. Let's plan, you know, to have that bigger number, and if we don't, then we don't. We'll use whatever we need, and maybe by talking with the company, we'll end up using 25 or whatnot.
Yeah, okay. And so next time, we'll bring that resolution and see how the board will approve it or not. And please bring back your ideas about giving input to this committee, assuming it's the budget committee, on what you'd like to see in the questions, and decide if you'd like a work session, because we would want a work session almost the very next time, right? The very next meeting after approval, or if you just want to send input to the committee separately. Okay, so think about that. Any other comments or questions? Okay, good. Anything from the public on this?
Comment?
Commissioner Zhang?
Okay. I'd like to thank Scott, Jim, Abby, and Catherine for putting up with this. And I know everybody did a lot of work going into it to make it as efficient as it was. And especially for Jim, who came up with the idea that let's just call him on the fly. And it really swayed a lot of people's opinion.
Thank you. I was going to thank the whole committee for being in on this, especially two board members here. So a comment from the public? Come on up. Sure. You state your name and address, and then we can hear that.
My name is Gwen Niehagen, and I'm a former educator here in the school district. And my concern is that if I were to take a survey by a outlying company, as a public citizen who's paying money, I would rather take a survey that was compiled in-house, because it sounds like you're doing the legwork already, coming up with questions that are pertaining to our district. And I just have a concern that we put a lot of money into asking outside companies to do some of the things that we could be doing in-house. So that's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you. just a comment. I will let you know that that background work that they do is really a lot of work, getting phone numbers and everything, just so we understand that. So it's a good comment. I would like to do more in-house, including some of our media stuff. Yeah. Yeah, and we will. Obviously, we'll be working on the questions ourselves. But thank you very much. We'll have to think about that. Go ahead, Commissioner Duax.
I think we will be doing a lot of work, Gwen, because we'll be going to a lot of clubs and places to speak, and so we'll be really active doing a lot of work on this. But they have access to phone numbers and demographics that we don't have, so I think it'll be better to have them. I feel similarly to you.
Okay, great. Commissioner Zhang?
I'd like to make a comment as well. Let's see, I believe this was brought up in committee, and what was it that the fact that if ECSD did it, there might be some bias or perceived bias. I believe that's the part where I felt that if the third party come in, they will have no reason to give us any biased information.
Okay, appreciate it. Yeah, Commissioner Hammack-Boyle.
And I think another aspect of that is we do have the demographics to be able to connect with people who already are in our district, but we truly want to reach outside those parameters, and we do not have that information, right?
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, let's move on to the next agenda item, and that's an update on our referendum timeline. Go ahead, Dr. Harden.
Okay. So what we were thinking is that we would begin with, and Abby, if you could make that just a little bit bigger. And if you could go to the next page with, yes, December. So with your referendum timeline, starting in December and February of 2015, we have gone through the December 2015 when you determined that you would indicate a need for recommendations related to the costs from the Compensation Committee. In looking at where we are now in the timeline, the 300 days to 180 days before the election, we are in that gathering feedback stage. So the things that are in yellow are the things that have been completed, and we have added a couple of things to the timeline. We have issued the RFP for survey to assess the community preferences and input about the school district needs. And the target date for the survey results was originally in April of 2016. As you are expected to approve one of the RFPs on April 4th, we anticipate that the results from that survey will come to us 6 to 8 weeks later. And that's what we have learned from the two proposals that are under consideration. I think one of the things that you're going to have to also determine, at the April 4th meeting is what you want in terms of consulting services. And that will be a discussion to include. We've been meeting with parent groups. And I've met personally with all the parent groups from the schools with the exception of Flynn, South, and North, and Prairie Ridge, which are scheduled. And those will take place over the next month. As a matter of fact, I'm meeting with Prairie Ridge tomorrow night. We're meeting with staff members. I've met with all faculties, and we're trying to schedule a date with Flynn. We've started our meetings with the community groups, and that began March 3rd when Abby and Joe and Catherine went to the Halley Optimist Club. So that was our first community meeting. Yes. one of the things that we're a little bit ahead of schedule with is we had talked about, after the question was composed, that we would have a social media outreach. And we have begun that effort by placing social media signage for each building. And that's going up this week. And the idea is to start getting people to go to that social media. And so that's in process. We will be setting up within the next couple of weeks the meetings with each of the buildings that are potentially affected by the referendum to talk about those building needs. And Larry Sommerfeld will be going to those along with anyone who wants to go with him. We have those scheduled with Memorial and Prairie Ridge. I met with Memorial's band boosters last week. We're meeting with their athletic boosters tomorrow night, and we talked specifically about the needs at the schools, and that's what we'll be doing at Prairie Ridge tomorrow night as well. So you've approved your timelines, and you reviewed the edits, and you approved the strategic plan. We have developed a fast financial facts that we can hand out to community groups as we talk to them about the district's financial situation. And that's been received, I think, rather well because it's pretty easy to understand. Terry Piper Thompson set up a Google Doc for board and administrative signups, and that's prepared for you and ongoing. And what I encourage you to do is to go on that site at least once a week, because the partnership coordinators are scheduling speaking opportunities, and I sent it to you today in an email.
Are Larry's ones on that about facility needs?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what the password is?
It's your login and your password. We'll get it for you.
And I'll announce it right now.
In terms of going to, so that's kind of, I think we're on schedule with everything for, for what we have said that we will do, before May 5th. One of the things that I would encourage you to do in the next agenda setting is that it's important to schedule your July meeting dates. The first Monday in July is, I think, July 4th. So we won't be meeting then, I don't think. But typically we had one meeting in July, and we have scheduled on our timeline to have a work session to talk about the question and how you will specify the question. So that'll be something to set, and I would encourage you to set that in the next agenda setting meeting so that we can publicize it to staff and, try to get vacations lined up and all of that. We're working toward the 2 August dates because it's anticipated that the board will adopt the official resolution at the August 15th board meeting, which is the third Monday in the second meeting. So those first 2 meetings in August will be critical for you. So that's where we are on the timeline, and
Just a question. Yeah, just a quick question on, in board docs, when I pulled it up, it isn't I don't have the one with the changes yellowed, so if we can get that to us.
I just didn't show up. I'll get those to you.
Yeah. Questions from board members on any of this, comments? I'll just mention, while we were thinking about it, in budget, we did talk about the delayed timeline for the survey, and that it will be a little tight, but you thought in May we should get, if I understand their timeline right? Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. We did talk a little bit about that, and I can get confirmation from them as well. Just when we talked with them on the phone last week, we indicated to them that we wouldn't be having the formal board approval until the beginning of April. And so how would they still be able to work with us, and how significantly would that affect the timeline that they had laid out? And it didn't appear to be a problem with Springstead. I don't remember what school perception said. Do you guys remember?
Yeah, it doesn't matter, because
I believe they said it was tight.
I think one of the things that we'll need to keep an eye on in agenda setting is this idea of finalizing the scope of projects, and again confirming that we have internal unity on those, and that should come shortly after the survey because that should give you the information that you need. So I think there are two critical points coming up for you. One is the survey, and then the other is the recommendations from the compensation committees. And those two things should help you to formalize your question.
Great, great. Thank you.
So you're talking about what we're gonna do to prepare the scope of projects, is that what you're talking about? Okay.
Yes, if you may remember that when we talked about things like technology and building needs, Abby costed those costs for you. The thing that was remaining was any cost that might be associated with changing the compensation structures. And then we would, the survey may give us more information in terms of the public's priorities in terms of the school district. And that might then help you to go back and ask for more cost analysis or to make changes in those original figures that Abby projected.
Other questions from board members on that? Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the update. That's good. Okay. Okay, great. Any input on the public on our timeline? Okay, great. Thank you, Abby. Appreciate it. All right, requests for future agenda items. Board members, I have a couple, but do board members have anything? Commissioner Duex.
Well, as I mentioned before, I'd like to have an equity discussion, and there are lots of gifts that are given to the different schools, and it's not just two high schools, it's elementary schools as well. And having worked on the foundation board, it's really hard to see that one school has to beg for $1,000 for 2 or 3 instruments, and another one gets the whole orchestra given to them. So we really need to talk about that.
Okay, all right. Okay, I have two. I've been looking through our suspension expulsion policies and rules, and it was last done in 2000, and I have some concerns about what's in there. So I'll send my concerns to P&G. I don't know if you guys if that's on your list or not, but some things that it can be. Well, I'm putting it as an agenda item for you guys to look at some things because I have some concerns about how the expulsion policies are in there. The other thing is I would like us to, at some point, continue with our strategic planning effort. And I had talked to Mark Clay at CEC a while ago about this, and he felt pretty strongly that we should be developing indicators of what measures our goals, as well as a district leadership team that kind of champions the plan and helps move it along. So that's another thing for agenda setting. Okay, all right. Board members, Commissioner Hambuck.
I want to thank the fact that the strategic priorities and the strategic plan is on the website. I ran it off. I carry it around with me now, so it's a good thing. Thank you.
Okay, great, great. Anything else from board members? Okay, I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion from Commissioner
Second.
Rubenville, second from Commissioner Vu. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, we are adjourned for tonight. Thank you very much.
This program is recorded and presented by Chippewa Valley Community Television. Chippewa Valley Community Television is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, you can contact us by calling 715-839-5067 or on the web at www.cvctv.org.